Hey, what's up? So narcissism, narcissism, avoidance. Um, how can you be selfish without becoming narcissistic? What does it mean to be selfish and not narcissistic? What is, I don't know, what is, how can you set boundaries and self-worth, all those things. Very much uh, blurry lines around these words, and yet a bunch of assumptions, a bunch of stories, and a bunch of narratives. Some of them come through uh, studies. Psychology will say certain things about, these things, and others talk about it through their experiences, which, one second. All right. Uh, I don't know what I was saying last, but I also want to throw in there ego. So yeah, there are a lot of narratives, there are a lot of stories, despite the fact that we don't understand it. You know, um, and I just believe that when we speak on things that we don't understand, like the stories become the written language for facts, and the stories I talk of are people's experiences, and then they become factual. But the fact that's not factual. An experience doesn't mean it's factual. I believe an experience is more evidence of its existence rather than some absolute concrete idea. Because even in psychology, it's constantly being updated. The study of it is not absolute at all. Same with science, right? As the world continues to evolve, so does the information in which we call facts. It's because what what we discover before it is labeled as an absolute is evidence of its existence. And so when we are able to prove that something exists, that is when we go ahead and we see all of the research and the papers and the articles written by researchers who have studied these things and have found or solved an equation that says, yes, this exists, and so this is the fact. I believe that this is somewhat, I don't think that it is, we shouldn't have it, but I believe it's flawed. It is flawed because we can't, if we, to say that a fact is absolute is where it becomes flawed, because clearly, as time goes on, the fact ends up becoming disproved. So, in order for the fact to be absolute, it would mean it has to remain regardless of how long time has gone on. Do you see what I'm saying? Um, so when it comes to recognizing two types of people, I mentioned narcissistic and avoidant. I want to start off by saying that narcissism, people who exhibit narcissistic behaviors, and avoidant, people who are or would be described as avoidants, they don't really have a psychological term for that. They do, but it's not treated the same as narcissism. And it's very interesting because I exhibit a lot of narcissistic behaviors and tendencies from almost every person. Many people exhibit narcissistic behaviors, tendencies, ideologies, and mentalities, and yet not many of them are on medication. Not many of them are even seeking help or therapy. What this tells us is that the disorder is only measured through identification. So when it is somewhat severe, that's when, so and so has it, you know, or when someone else, I guess, decides to seek help, they notice it in maybe a loved one. That's when it can be said this person has narcissism. But we understand that narcissism resides outside of the confines, the walls of psychology, because there are many stories of people who are in countless relationships with people who are narcissistic. Now, on the other hand of it, which is not separate of it, is the avoidant. I want to go ahead and say this before I continue, that narcissism and avoidant, and someone who is avoidant, is literally, they are on the same spectrum. They are not inseparable. So if narcissism is here, then avoidant is here, right? Meaning the avoidant can go ahead and cross the scale boundary to becoming narcissistic, as much as the narcissist can also become avoidant. As a matter of fact, you do experience both in someone who is exhibiting either narcissistic behaviors or avoidance. For example, there's probably, if you're someone who's been in a narcissistic environment, let's say your partner, maybe you grew up in a narcissistic household. Um, one second. So you will experience that the narcissist uses avoidance as a tactic, whether it be consciously or it just isn't as a symptom of narcissism. They too will avoid accountability. They will avoid taking ownership. They will avoid looking at themselves. They will avoid um, understanding how someone else has been hurt. Um, and they will avoid taking the fall, which is all to do with accountability. I've literally just described accountability in the last 5 statements I just said. So, um, now when it comes to the avoidant is just a symptom of narcissism. However, one is more leaning toward being avoidant because they are fearing becoming narcissistic. Okay? So, because one fears being narcissistic, they become avoidant. And what that looks like is obviously someone, it's literally what it's in the word. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you need extra clarification, someone who is avoidant is someone who literally just avoids everything. They avoid things that don't feel good. They avoid confrontation. They avoid being seen. They avoid communication. They avoid almost all things that will help them. They even avoid assistance, advice. They avoid people. They avoid all types of things, right? It's literally the word itself. Um, and so I would like to turn my attention to understand what's going on. So, someone who's avoidant, like you can observe someone and be like, that person is avoidant. First of all, before I even get into that, I want to start off by saying that avoidant people and narcissism can be exhibited or can be observed by in others at a scale. So some people exhibit narcissistic tendencies at a greater scale than others because, like I said, if it is a spectrum, then a dial has the um, ability to be adjusted. So someone can be here, which is at the end of the scale. We'll call this the end of the scale. This is one half of the avoidant narcissistic scale. We're gonna say this is the this half is the narcissistic side, and there's this whole entire area in which one can be most narcissistic and balanced. This is the zero part of it. This is like level, and these are all levels. On the other side of it, on this side, which is the avoidant, same thing here. Most avoidant to least avoidant to balanced. Okay? It's important to understand that there is that balancing point here in between the two, but most people don't teeter away. They go like, they kind of treat it like a seesaw. Sometimes it's like, oh, I can't balance it because this is a seesaw. Think of a seesaw, one weight needs to be on the other, right? But when you just see it as a scale, you're gonna be able to you could probably separate it, right? Find that balancing point. Um, so with that being said, there are different ways in which it shows up in people. Okay, someone who you would describe as avoidant, meaning their behaviors exhibit avoidance, their patterns as well. Ghosting is one. Um, what's going on is what's going on is that surface level, they're avoidant. Internal, they're narcissistic. Someone who is exhibiting narcissistic tendencies, surface level, you could observe them and say, this person is clearly narcissistic. Surface level, narcissistic. Internal, avoidant. Okay, now, what makes these people these people? Well, their upbringing, like almost 90% of the time, it is their upbringing. It goes, now this is where psychology can come in at because we can understand the foundation at which these things can occur. So at first, let's take person one, for example, who is avoidant. When observed, it looks avoidant, but internally they're narcissistic. They grew up in a household where they were hurt. They were probably, maybe they were mistreated. Everything that pretty much builds a narcissistic person, um, or perhaps maybe they observed someone else in the household as narcissistic. Something happened in the household that caused them to create this. Not only did okay, so they created this kind of, there's this world. So let me slow down. So there's this world in which when you grow up in your family, you are experiencing a world of possibility based on your environment. And so when your environment only shows two, one or two possibilities for you, that can be limiting because you're going to envelop one or two of those possibilities. So, if your household, for example, had exhibited possibilities of narcissism and avoidance, let's say those two people showed up in your life as your parents, those two possibilities are now going to be internalized through you, where either one hold narcissistic tendencies inside and you come out as, when observed, as avoidant, right? There's those different possibilities, or vice versa. You hold avoidance inside and you become narcissistic, because those are the two possibilities of the world in which you grow up in when you are a child first, that determines your own inner world for a very, very brief period of your entire lifetime. So, the same, again, can be said for the avoidant. You don't have to repeat it. Um, so, when it comes to, I don't want to say breaking free. I also don't want to say like getting out of it. I don't know. There's no, but you understand what I'm trying to say. To reverse, it's not really about reversing it either. It's about bringing it back to that balance point, like I said before. It goes back to the questions I actually asked in the beginning. How do you become, how can you be selfish without being narcissistic? How can you set boundaries without necessarily avoiding? How can one have an ego without being shallow, right? When you ask the questions, when we ask those questions instead of how can I erase it, how can I reverse it, how can I run away from it, like those are not the right questions we're needing to ask. We're needing to understand the balancing. We because those questions understand that there's a balancing point. It doesn't allow for teetering. We ask how can we escape it, it teeters to one side. When we ask how can we change it, it teeters to another side. When we ask how can we reverse it, it just, you're not going to get anywhere because it is a scale. And if you teeter on a scale, you can never come to equilibrium, balance the scales. So when you ask how can you be selfish without being narcissistic, that is when the teeter stops tottering and we're here. You've, you've settled down. You stop moving. Okay. So here, how can we balance the scales? Well, there's no, I can't give you that answer right now. There's no, I'm not, to find balance, I'll say this. To find balance within, you have to go within. You have to go within. You have to first be able to recognize, you have to identify that you have those tendencies. And if not that, if it's not you, who are those things? And I don't want to make it a video where it's like I'm giving you sauce on how to da 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 da. Cause I'm pretty sure you're not someone, like if you are that person, you're not someone who's going to be watching a video on how to fucking heal yourself. You're not doing that right now. You're here because you want to understand how to avoid people who are like this in your life, right? And that's kind of why I'm making this video actually. So scratch those questions, right? But they're there. Just, just they're there. But so how can you kind of steer clear from people who are like that in your life, who show up as friends, show up as family, lovers at times? How can you do that? Well, you need to understand how those experiences connect with you. How do you feel after you leave an experience with someone that you've observed to be avoidant or narcissistic? What does your body tell you? Because the more that you can acknowledge the way that you feel, what you're sensing, what you're picking up, it doesn't have to be an emotion. It doesn't have to be, oh, this person hurt me. It's not that. It's more like this feels off. This seems wishy-washy. We talk about the signs of narcissism. That's kind of how we can avoid it. We look at the signs. That's where we kind of bring up the quote unquote facts, which is really just evidence. Evidence that narcissism or avoidance is at play here. Okay? So, you kind of just identify the behaviors of someone else. You observe, first and foremost. You observe. Observe when someone's being hot and cold. Observe when someone's being wishy washy. When people aren't able to make decisions with you, that is one big sign. But okay, of course, some people love to give benefits of the doubt. Some people just don't know yet. Some people don't know yet. Some people need a little bit more time to make a decision. Okay, if you're that person, then fine. Let's say you want to give them a little more time. You want to give them a little bit more time to figure it out. You want to be a little bit more nicer. Okay, whatever. Um, so you give them a benefit of the doubt. You still continue to observe. Okay, what are they saying the next time? Are they still unsure? Have they given you an excuse for why they're unsure? If they aren't flat out saying, I don't know yet, then are they saying, oh, I had this to do, so I couldn't really. Mm. Or if they are just avoidant, then maybe they're not saying anything. Maybe they only come around, it's good. Maybe they come back to you when, and they act like nothing has happened, right? Let's talk about some more signs. So if you're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, I honestly, I feel as though that the narcissistic tendency that I exhibit in people don't come off as overtly narcissistic. It comes off as covert, meaning I can see it within. It's something that's inside of someone rather than physical characteristics I'm able to observe. The observation, the front, the mask of the narcissist is the avoidant, but the narcissist is on the inside. So it is within their actions. They play the avoidant when internally they are the narcissist. You know what I mean? So it when it comes to that, right? When it comes to that type of archetype, what I'm talking about, they're shallow. They string you along. Um, they have a sense of confidence that also seems humble. Okay. Um, and so that could be a little bit more confusing for people who fall victim to this. Um, they, yeah, I would say that. I would say that's the biggest thing. They exhibit these qualities that seem, and they are and also seem not righteous, but admirable. I'd say that. Um, Maybe qualities within yourself that you don't immediately, I don't know, like find within or something like that. I don't, something like that. You know what I mean? And maybe that's why you're after them. Maybe that's why you like them, right? Um, but you gotta understand that what you're seeing is just a front. Like the mask is the avoidant because they're avoidant, right? They avoid you. They don't talk to you. When you guys talk, it's pretty shallow, pretty surface level. Maybe even the relationship that you have with them is only physical. It's not emotional. They've turned off their emotions through protection. They've been hurt before. They've been hurt by family. They've learned to suppress their emotions. And so it's kind of like a learned response, right? So that's why it seems like they're very collected, cool, calm, collected, composed, deep down. You know, it's really just it. They're caring a lot, right? So that's that. Um, Now, when it comes to the person who is overtly narcissistic and inside is avoidant, mm, I'd say that's a little bit more. I don't even know what that would look like. I think. Oh, actually, I do. It's it's someone who's they come they'll be like overly confident. You know what I mean? And not in a subtle way. Like they're overly confident because they avoid what they are feeling inside. You know what I mean? When someone's front is narcissism, inside they are avoiding their feelings. Not that they don't feel, they avoid it. uh, and is that just means that their that their front is what they speak is basically through their own insecurities. It's very easily recognizable. Um, you have you'll probably be able to recognize it. Okay, I'll tell you that for sure. And what they say, how they say things, are going to stem through their insecurities. So if you are having a conversation with someone and they bring up things that are maybe a little less I don't know, like encouraging, like they're constantly talking about things that just don't really lighten the mood, you know? Maybe they're saying things that could get you in your own head, like, what the fuck? Like, what, like, why are you talking about this? Why are you saying stuff like this? It's because they are speaking through what they're avoiding inside, which is their insecurities. Oftentimes, the two archetypes will be found in a relationship where they have both been hurt. Um, and so that makes for a lovely couple of bags. That wasn't funny. But yeah, they are both very much carrying baggage, and trauma and hurt, and so uh, it's very blinding to for them, right? Not for the person who can observe it, but for them. And so just to kind of steer clear, these people they pretty much drama dramas in their life, you know, anyone so yeah, right? So more symptoms. I'm wrapping it up here, but more symptoms of both now would be drama. Okay. So anyone who has a lot of drama going on, they gossip a lot, you know. Maybe they tell you that they don't gossip, you know. Maybe they know you're not that type of person. Um, so because of that, they'll put on the front for you. Ooh, ooh. You know, maybe they'll put on a different face for you. Ooh. And when they do that, um, I don't know. I don't know. No, but no, seriously, like they will observe you and they will think that they know you based on their own experiences. You know what I mean? Um, so just be aware of that. And yeah, those are the symptoms. Those are the like the ones you can easily spot and observe within the people like this. And when you observe it, I strongly suggest that you don't wait. You can at least give it maybe two benefits of the doubt. More than that, everything else falls back on you. Whatever it is that continuously has them hurt, you have to understand this is your decision at this point. You've watched a video, you've gone through countless experiences. What more evidence do you need in order to be proved or shown that these people, they're here, they exist, and that the next person that you meet might also exhibit very much same or similar behaviors? Also, if you are someone who is avoidant, right, you may have the narcissistic qualities inside of you. And what it looks like inside of you is based on um, your mindset, your mentality. Okay, I'm gonna say that for another video because that could be very much important, right? You may be like, oh, I'm avoidant. I don't have narcissist. I grew up with a narcissist. Okay, that doesn't make you as innocent as you may think. The reason why you may be attracting people who are overtly narcissistic is because they are matching what is going on inside of you. Okay. But how it manifests is totally different, and this is why it can be very much confusing, or just a little bit more complex. And yeah, so perhaps I'll be talking about this in my next video. And so, with that being said, 30 minutes on the clock. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you listened to it all the way to the end, thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.